Hello and welcome back to SwingU Live Lessons. We're so excited to be doing these for you guys once every single week. Last week was our first segment, and we talked about the driver, how to hit the big stick better. This week, you guessed it, I'm holding it. We're going to talk about the irons. We're going to give you an overview of how to hit your irons correctly. Now, I am traveling this week, so we had to pre-record this. So instead of a live Q&A at the end of the show, I want you guys to drop your questions in the comment section below, and I'm going to personally answer as many of them as I possibly can. And some of your questions we may cover in future live episodes. Okay, so this week we're talking about how to hit the irons correctly. Last week we talked a lot about low point control. So your swing arc, as it comes down, it's going to reach a low point and it's going to start to rise again. So with the driver, we talked about how we want that low point behind the golf ball. So we're hitting the ball on the way up, so we have that optimal launch angle. With our irons, it's going to be the opposite. That low point needs to be in front of the ball, so we're hitting ball first and then divot second, okay? If that low point is behind the ball, you're either going to hit fat shots, which hitting a fat shot with an iron is probably like the worst thing that you could do on the golf course. It's just brutal because the ball goes basically nowhere. Or if you don't hit the ball fat when that low point's behind your ball, you're going to hit it on the way up and you're going to blade it. So it's really almost impossible to hit a good shot with an iron if your low point's behind the ball. So we have to work on controlling that low point. Now, we're going to talk a lot more than just controlling your low point. We're going to go over setup. We're going to go over controlling your swing path and your club face, how to work the ball in different directions. So we're going to cover everything here. So first, let's talk about setup. And what we're going to talk about first here is ball position, okay? Because that will change depending on what irons you're hitting. This is my wedge. This is my wedge here, and this is my 3-iron. You see, we got quite a bit difference in length there. So our setup is going to change. With the wedge, our feet are going to be a little more narrow. And for me, I like that ball position right in the middle of my stance. So the feet are kind of shoulder width apart. I can drop the club from my chin down, bring it out, and the ball or the club should sit just behind the golf ball. Now with my 6-iron here, okay, the ball's going to be moved a little bit more forward, longer club, and it's going to help us hit the ball a lot more solid. If it's too far back, we're going to be hitting down on it too much, okay? So with the 6-iron, I like the ball off my left ear as a right-handed golfer, so I can hold the club off my left ear, drop it down, drop it out, and that club should be just behind the golf ball. With my 3-iron, I like the ball halfway in between my left ear and my shoulder blade, okay? So I can bring it down here, the club out, and that's going to put me in a good position. Like I said, this can change depending on the shot you're trying to hit, depending on what golfer you are, but if you're looking for a neutral ball position setup, that's what you're looking at. So the pitching wedge is centered, the 6-iron's off the left ear, and the 3-iron is in between the shoulder blade and my left ear. And then the ball, obviously the other clubs will just fill in the blanks from the 3-iron back to the pitching wedge, okay? So I feel like that's a pretty good little neutral ball position kind of thing to go off for those of you out there that are just wondering where your ball should be when you're hitting your irons. Next, let's talk about posture a little bit here. We will cover posture in a different episode, but I think it's important to talk about, especially with the irons here. Now, we don't want to get too far bent over here with our irons, from the waist, because when we do that, as we swing through, it's going to cause us to early extend. It's going to cause us to stand up, okay? And it's going to, because of our weight distribution, our body is going to try to correct it and stand up and early extend. And most of you probably know what early extension is. You may struggle with it, and it's no good when we're trying to hit the ball. So early extension is basically when the hips move towards the golf ball and your back stands up at impact. So you get really tall here, okay? You're losing a lot of power. Ideally, we're going to keep that spine angle, and then we're going to extend with our hips towards the target. That's the goal. Okay, so we have to have a correct setup here. So I really like the armpits to be just in front of the kneecap at setup here. So we're standing up and we're bending from the waist slightly, and then we're going to add a little bit of knee flex. And then the check, you just have the club dangle from your armpit, and it should be just in front of the kneecap there, okay? So from there, I can let my arms hang down, and there I should have a pretty good setup. Now, a lot of people ask, how far away from the ball should I stand? It will change, okay? Some people like the hands a little closer to the body. Some guys or some golfers will like their hands a little bit further away from the body. But a good rule of thumb and something to kind of look at is one fist from your body to the butt end of the grip. Okay, so if you could fit one fist here in between the butt end of your grip and your body, I feel like that's a pretty good arm hang. So your arms are kind of feeling like they're hanging more straight down. For me, I tend to get the hands a little more closer to my body. I'm a taller guy. I'm 6'5". My clubs are only a quarter of an inch longer. So, I have a slightly different setup than most, but a good neutral setup is one where the armpits just in front of the kneecap and the hands are hanging a fist length away from the butt end. Okay, so we got our ball position here. We got our posture pretty good. Next is alignment. I mean, obviously, alignment is something we'll talk about a little later on. Let me grab my alignment rod here. But it's important to talk about. Obviously, we want our feet, our hips, and our shoulder aligned all at the same place. Now, when we're talking about alignment, one thing to understand is that our feet, our hips, and our shoulder alignment is going to be a little different than where our club face is aligned, okay? So the club face is going to align. Let's just see that line there in the screen. Hopefully you guys can see that. But my club face is going to be on that line. But since I'm standing a couple of feet this side of the ball, then my feet, my hips, and my shoulder line are going to be a couple feet left of where my club face alignment is, okay? So many of you know that there. That doesn't mean you still can't come in here and set the club behind the ball at your target and then align your body with that same club face alignment, because that's just going to bring a nice line this way and then a nice line at your target there. Okay, so yes, we are slightly on this side of the ball, so it's going to be picturing like a railroad track, so a set of train tracks. That's what we kind of want our alignment to be. So I do like kind of having the club there, originally setting that up and then taking your stance. We see a lot of tour players do this, and then you can just picture a T coming from the leading edge of your club face and going along your feet line. So alignment's something that many golfers struggle with. So it's just something that you're gonna have to work on. These alignment rods are great. If you don't have these, every single golfer should buy these. They're only a couple of dollars at the hardware store. Keep a couple of these in your bag, and when you are practicing, lay them on the ground, okay? And then if you are changing your target, move them around every few shots. So I feel like that's a pretty good little start here. We have our ball position. We kind of talked about that. We have our stance and our posture correct, and we have our alignment correct. If you guys can get those three things correct, you're going to put yourself in a good position to hit great shots. So make sure you really, really focus hard on that, because I don't think enough golfers do. They kind of come in here, they try to work on their swing, they try to fix their club path, their face angle, but they neglect the posture, ball position, and alignment, which are three of the most crucial things. So work really, really hard on that over these next coming months, and I feel like you're going to really see some big improvements. Now, we kind of tease this a little bit, but we're going to talk about controlling the low point of your arc. Okay, we want to hit down on the ball. We want to hit ball first and divot second. And so many times we see the opposite happen, okay? We see people hitting behind the ball, so their low point's bottoming out behind, or they're blading it like we talked about earlier. So why do you have the low point behind your ball? And why isn't it forward? Well, there's three reasons why. Number one, lack of weight transfer. So kind of falling back on the trail foot on the way back. Obviously, that's going to bring the low point behind us. Number two, flipping. So releasing the club too early this way. So as I release this club this way, the low point bottoms out behind me, and then it starts to rise. You see that? As I flip my wrist here, it gets lower, and then it comes up, and that low point's behind me. So falling back and flipping, two major reasons. And number three, lack of rotation. Okay, so using too much hands and arms. When we set up here to the ball, originally, if I take my setup here, my club is behind the ball. So I need to be doing something different at impact than I am at setup. If you're taking a video of yourself and you look and you swing, and at impact, it looks almost the same as your setup, there's a huge issue there. We have to change that. We have to get the club to bottom out in front. So how do we do that? Okay, so at impact, this is what we want to see. We want to see the hands ahead. Look at any tour player, slow motion, face on view hitting an iron. Their hands are going to be near their left thigh at impact. So their hands are forward, de-lofting the club. This may be a term that you guys are familiar with. So how do we get there? We get there with hip rotation. Okay, so the left hip works back behind us. The shoulders start to open. So the shoulders or the chest is pointing more towards the target, and that's going to bring our hands forward. If I sit here and don't rotate, and I'd have to try to throw my hands forward, and that's not going to work. I could just naturally get my hands forward by rotating, okay, and getting my hips open and my shoulders open. So impact position should look completely different than setup. We should be here at impact, not here, which we see a lot of people doing. We see Matthew Wolf, he rehearses impact before he swings. So he goes to this position, and then he goes because that's where he wants to be at impact. That's a drill that him and his coach worked on for so long. He just started developing it as a trigger for his swing, which is fine. But I think one of the great drills here to start working on is preset impact position and then swing. So let's do that. This is a tough drill, but we're going to sit here. We're going to preset impact position. So our hips are going to be open, our shoulders are going to be open. Our hands forward, and then we're going to hold it here. What we're going to do is we're going to try to go back halfway, holding this impact position, and then we're extending through. So for a lot of you out there that struggle with rotation, struggle with standing up, aerial extension, sit here, open hips, open shoulders, right? Then we're going back, and then we're driving through. Okay, I think it's a great drill for working on low point control. The next drill I want to work on with you is the gripping the club near the head drill. So what you're going to do is just grab the club about 5 inches from the club head. You guys can do this at home right now if you're able to. And what you're going to do is just have the grip on the lead hip here, just like this. So we're going to swing, and the objective here is to get this lead hip we need to get this grip in front of the lead hip here, because if we're flipping, we kind of talked about that as a second reason why the low point bottoms out behind the golf ball. If you're flipping with this drill, you're going to hit yourself in the side. It's going to really hurt, okay? So the objective here is to have the grip pointing away from you on the way down. We're getting those hands forward. We can also look at the club head here. This is a great drill to control your club head as well, and then you can swing up and through. So we should start slow because this is going to really hurt if you're someone who doesn't rotate and flips too much. This drill can hurt. So start slow at first. Feel like you're holding onto your wrist angles here. You're rotating through, using your hips and your shoulders to rotate through. Okay? And then you can kind of speed things up and work from there. Great drill for those of you that are struggling with lack of rotation and flipping. And like I said, if you're using this drill, you might as well pay attention to your club face as well. Because when you're doing this and you're swinging down, that club face is obviously a lot closer to our body, and we know if it's open or closed. Okay, so let me reset this real quick. 2 great drills right there. Preset impact and having, gripping the club a few inches from the head. Now, we are hitting off mats here, and this is a big issue with a lot of golfers. Maybe your driving range, you're hitting off mats all the time, and you're hitting them great off the mats, but when you go out to the course, you're chunking them or thinning them. Because obviously, when we're hitting off mats, we can get away with poor contact. We can get away with hitting behind the ball because the club face will jump off the mat. So if you're practicing on mats, you need to have a way to find whether you're hitting on fat or not, or whether your low point of your swing is behind the ball. So what I do, very simple, lay down a towel, okay, and have the towel 1 club head behind your ball. So if I have this towel 1 club head behind the ball, and just like this, my pitching wedge, and my low point's behind the ball, I'm going to move the towel. So I'll show you one where I do hit the towel here. Okay? And the towel is going to pop up. It's not going to hurt us, but we know it moves, so that's a bad strike. If you can lay this towel down 1 club head behind your ball and hit a shot to where you're not moving the towel, you know that you hit a good shot. Again, move the towel there, no good. All right, so let's try to hit one without moving this towel. So what are we going to think? We're going to think rotate, okay? Hands and hands ahead of the ball. Really getting that low point forward, making sure we're transferring our weight forward. Now, I don't want you sliding too much, but at impact here, we can't be falling back on the trail leg here, okay? So that's a good one right there. Good swing, towel did not move. So you need to make sure you have some sort of way of finding out whether you're hitting the ball fat, especially if you're hitting off mats, okay? So I have this other drill that I like to use when you're playing outside. Okay, let me grab it real quick. Here it is. Sorry about that. Dr. Scholl's Odor X Foot Powder Spray. So what you're going to do here, if you're playing outside and you do have grass to practice off, great. What a great drill would be is use this Dr. Scholl's Odor X Foot Powder Spray and just spray it on the ground. What it's going to do, it's going to give you a white line. I want you to have some sort of line on the ground that you can practice on. And without hitting balls, you're going to have this line running this way. So just for, just to explain it a little bit here, we're going to put this alignment rod running this way. And basically, outside on grass, what you would do is you're going to take some swings and you're going to work on getting your divot in front of that line. Okay, so you're going to swing over and over and over again. Get 7, 8, 9, 10 divots in a row that happen in front of the line. Now, this line is going to represent where our ball goes. So once you practice that and get those divots forward, you can go ahead and take your golf ball, set it on that line, and go ahead and hit a shot. So we know if you're hitting ball first and divot second, you're going to really, really hit better and more compressed iron shots, okay? So just to wrap up that segment there, we need to make sure we're hitting the ball first, divot second. Really, if you have access, which I'm sure you all do, to slow motion videos on your camera, videotape your golf swing from the face-on view, from this view. I want you to take a look at where your hands are at impact. If your hands are behind the ball or even in line with the ball at impact with your irons, then you're doing something wrong. We have to get those hands more on the lead leg, lead thigh at impact so that we're de-lofting the club and compressing the golf ball. Too many times I see people try to lift the ball off the ground, okay? That's not how we do it. Don't be afraid. We have to hit down on it and de-loft it. What happens is when we're hitting down on it and de-lofting it, that ball is going to climb up the club face and it's going to launch plenty high. You do not need to try to help the ball up. Let the club do what it's designed to do. So the three things we talked about: flipping, falling back on the lead foot, and lack of rotation. Those are all going to be keys to why you're hitting behind the ball and why your low point's behind the ball. So make sure we're really rotating correctly, we're not falling back on our trail foot, and we're not releasing our wrist too early here. We're not flipping. And I think one of the reasons why we see so many people flip is an effort to square the club face. Okay, we're going to talk about some wrist angles here in a second to help you square the face. That's going to keep you from flipping. It's too many times golfers will have an open face here, and they'll try to flip it and try to square it. So we'll talk about that in a second. But I really want you guys to work hard on compressing the ball, hands forward, rotation, and controlling that low point and getting it in front of the golf ball, okay? And again, I think the towel is a great thing to work on when you're hitting off mats. Otherwise, if you're in here hitting off this mat and you have a problem with low point, you could be striping everyone hitting an inch behind the ball. You're going to get outside, and it's just going to be ugly. So make sure you're definitely having some sort of feedback drill in there as well. All right? So any questions on that? Again, we typically will do a live Q&A here. And today, like I said, I'm going to be traveling next week, so we're recording this early. So make sure you're leaving your questions in the comment section below. I'm personally going to answer them. Now let's talk about club path and controlling your face. Let me grab my 6-iron here. A lot of times, obviously, golfers struggle with slicing the ball more times than not. So why does that happen? We talked about this last week. We talked about some numbers last week, out to in club path and controlling the face. But I think it's worth touching on again here with this iron lesson here. Now, let's hit one. Let's hit a ball here. You know what? We're not getting this ball recognize right now for some reason. There we go. Got the check mark up there. Let's hit one here and just dive deep into numbers. I'm going to try to hit a slice here for you guys so we can take a look. Okay. It didn't really slice enough for us, so let's hit one more. It's 2 straight. Let's try to hit this time I'm going to really try to exaggerate it, hit a big old slice here for you guys so we can take a look. All right, and I'm hitting pretty much a straight ball here. That did slice just a little bit there, more like a fade. Let's try that one more time here. Okay, no cutting on the live lessons. We may be getting a little bit of a misread here for some reason. Because for some reason I'm not getting a reading on the ball. Okay, let's try to reset this here. Bear with me. Apologize. Go back here. Let's get a different golf ball. Maybe that'll work. All right, there we go. We got the check mark. Okay, let's try it again. All right, there's the one we wanted. All right, so let's take a look at these numbers real quick here. We're going to talk about club path and our face angles and why the ball is slicing, okay? A lot of you may know this. Now, the ball slices here. We had an open club face, so this ball mostly sliced because of the open club face, but we have an out-to-in club path as well. So we didn't have a huge out-to-in club path, but we have an open face here. So the club face is largely responsible for sending the ball. So it's largely responsible for where the ball starts. The club path is responsible for how it bends. So the club face sends it, the club path bends it. Okay, so if you're someone who's struggling with slicing the ball, you're either, most likely you have an out-to-in path and an open club face. Okay, so we talked about last lesson a few drills on helping you swing a little more in to out, okay, including a drill that I love here. It's basically what you're going to do is run some golf balls on a path that's more in to out here. Okay, so if I'm lined up this way, and I have these balls here, about 1.5 feet behind the ball and a foot towards me, and in front of the ball, a foot in front and a foot away from me, I can feel like my club face traces these balls on the way down, and now I'm swinging in to out. Because an out to in path is a path that your hands get away from your body on the downswing, and they get in towards your body on the way through. An in to out path is the hands are more dropped back behind us. They're tracing the balls, and they're swinging more in our body and out towards the target. So a lot of times, golfers who struggle with slicing the ball, they see their ball going right, so they try to make it go left. In an effort to make the ball go left, they're actually making it worse because now you're swinging more out to in. Another thing they'll do is aim further left, and they're going to swing along their feet line, and it's also going to make them swing more out to in. So if anything, I like to see a little more of a closed stance with someone who's working on fixing their out to in path. So now we can feel like our hands swing along our feet and out towards the target, and we can feel like we're tracing these golf balls here. Okay, so now we can feel more of an in to out path there. Okay, again, I don't think that was a great reading, but just because this ball started right doesn't mean our path was an issue. Now, it didn't read the path issues because we had other golf balls here, but that was most likely an in to out path with a slightly open face. So you have to understand ball flight laws here. Just because your ball's missing right, it may not be your swing path, okay? You can have an in to out path. If your club face is open, you're still going to miss right. It could be a push, okay? So you have to understand that as well. And we'll cover ball flight laws in more detail later on. And I have more drills in the driver's SwingU live lesson. Take a look at that to help you fix your slices here. Now, one thing I do want to cover real quickly here is wrist angles, okay? So controlling the club face is so important, okay? So if you're slicing the ball, most likely you have an open face. So the two things that control the club face are grip. So we need to make sure we have a nice neutral grip. A nice neutral grip is essentially one that has, if I take this glove, the grip with my hand here, you're going to see a little V form between my index finger and my thumb. That V should point at my right ear as a right-handed golfer. Now, as I bring my other hand on, it's also going to create a V there. That V should also point at my right ear as a right-handed golfer. Okay, because if you have too weak of a grip that's more this way, right hand on top more, left hand more on the left side of the club, when I return my hands back to normal, the club face is open. So number one, check your grip. Make sure you have a nice neutral grip. Number two, the wrist angles. Too many times we see this angle at the top here where the left arm is adding extension, like the wrist going this way, instead of flexion, more like DJ where the wrist going this way. We talked about this in the driver lesson as well. But this is so important. What I want you to feel is more of a nice straight line up your arm and up your wrist here at the top, okay? So that we can see this club is a little more neutral or even a little more closed. So a closed club face at the top would be one where the club face is pointing at the sky. An open one is more of a toe to the ground. So it's so important that you guys, we all have access here in 2021 to record our swings. Take your phone and make sure you're recording your swings. One of the checkpoints I want you to look at is, do you have an open club face at the top? Because if that toe's at the ground, the entire way down here, you're going to be fighting it. And that's going to lead to you flipping it or trying to do something to square the club face, and that's when bad things happen. So I want you to feel like a couple of checkpoints here. On the way back, when the club is waist high, I'd like to see this club match your spine angle. So it's a little more closed here. My spine angle is going this way, obviously. I want that club face to kind of go this way. At the top here, that toe should be pointing more towards at the ball, not at the ground. Or even that, club face, if you're someone who leaves it open, I'd like to see it more so pointing at the sky, okay? So you're in a little more of a closed position, so now you can rotate down and square the club face. But it's largely because of our wrist angles here. If I sit here at the top and I go this way and cup it and add extension with my lead wrist, look at the club face. Toes pointing at the ground. If I add flexion there, you're going to see the face is now pointing at the sky. So make sure you at least have a nice straight line up your arm. This logo on your glove is a really good checkpoint. I use this all the time with my students. You can feel like the logo on your glove is pointing more so at the sky at the top, okay? And then we come down, and at impact, your logo is pointing more so at the ground, okay? So at the sky at the top and at the ground at impact. That's really going to help you guys that are struggling with an open club face, okay? So work on that drill with the balls here, kind of tracing it. Make sure you're feeling like your hand, if you're someone who's coming over the top, your hands are staying more back behind your body. You're swinging in and then out. Like I said, I had more drills there, on my driving lesson as far as fixing a slice. We will cover, we're going to really spend time here. We're doing these once every week. So we're going to have a live just dedicated to fixing a slice. So we'll have more in detailed, in-depth drills there on that live. But this is just a complete overview iron lesson. So I don't want to spend too much time there. When we're fixing a big hook, somebody who struggles with hooking the ball. See, I'm a guy who kind of likes to hit more of a draw. So I'm maybe more so in this side of the spectrum. Guys who struggle, or golfers, guys and girls who struggle with hooking the ball are people that get stuck here. They're a little too far from the inside. They're hitting the ball off the toe. They're not getting enough rotation, and they're getting stuck here. So for them and for us, we're feeling like our hands move out away from our body more on the way down instead of back behind us, okay? And so, again, we're going to spend a live lesson where we're just talking about hooking the golf ball as well. But I want to stop it there as far as that segment goes, as far as kind of talking about fixing a slice. Next, I want to talk about, next segment here is talk about working the ball. Okay, everyone wants to be able to work the ball right to left and left to right. And it's great. I think every golfer should be able to do that. You should be able to, if I sat here and said, okay, hit a draw, even though if you're someone who likes to hit a fade, you should be able to do something that allows you to hit a draw. Because there's going to be a circumstance out in the course that you're going to need to hit a draw. But here's my issue. Too many times, golfers that aren't very skilled, aren't great golfers, they try to work the ball both ways all day, even if they're in the middle of the fairway. They see the pins on the left side. It's like, okay, this shot calls for a little bit of a draw in there. They see the pins on the right. Oh, this shot calls for a little bit of fade. I don't like that. I think you should have one ball flight that is a go-to that you use 95% of the time. Colin Morikawa, who won last week, he talked about it in a recent interview that he hits a fade 95% of the time. Most every tour player hits one certain shot 95% of the time. They're not all working it both ways. Obviously, they know how to do it, but I really encourage you to develop whether it's a little fade or a little draw, and that's your go-to shot that you're hitting almost every time, unless obviously there's a tree or something that dictates you to having to hit a different shot. So we're going to talk about shot shaping here. So first of all, let's talk about hitting a draw. If you want to hit a draw and you're someone who hits fades, you're really going to have to work on adjusting your setup, okay? So if I'm trying to hit a draw, obviously, what do we want here? We're learning that to draw the ball, we need the in to out club path, and we need a face that's close to our club path. So we don't need a face that's really close to our target. We really want a face that's slightly open to our target, but is less than our swing path. It may be a little confusing here, but I'm trying to say, if I swing this club here and I have a 4 degrees in to out with a club face that's open 1.5, we're going to see a beautiful shot that starts right at the target and draws back towards the line. Okay, so we really want an in to out path with a club face that's closed to our path. So how are we going to do that? If we're sitting here and hitting a draw and you're somebody who hits a fade, you're going to have to exaggerate this. Okay, I'm someone who likes to hit a draw, so this shot is not as hard for me. So what we want to do for you, for those of you out there that are struggling with hitting a draw, is number one, you want a closed stance. So you want a stance that's right of your target. We want a stance to where this ball wants to start. So we're looking a little bit out here at these trees with our feet, our hips, and our shoulders. Okay, for some reason that red, whatever, the sensors are up there. So if our feet, our hips, shoulders are aimed right, we can feel like our club swings along our feet line here. Okay, and now we can feel like it swings in to out. So we have a shut stance at address. We want our club face to be slightly shut to our stance. So we want to aim this club face at kind of where we want the ball to end. So I'm looking just right of this line with my club face, okay? And for some reason we're not getting a reading again with the ball. We're looking for a check mark up there, or else we're not going to get what we want. Okay, we're getting a little bit of issues here tonight with the simulator. It happens. It's okay. We'll figure it out. But we're trying to get a check mark going. Otherwise, it doesn't give us a good reading. So maybe it's the ball. Maybe it's the stuff that we have up here. All right, we got the check mark. All right, thank God. All right, so we got the feet, hips, shoulders closed. We got the club face aiming at where we want the ball to end. And let's swing along our feet line here and out towards our target. That's beauty right there. That's a beautiful draw that's drawing back towards our target. Now it landed right of the line, which is great. Whenever we're hitting a draw, we do not want that ball to cross the line because it's going to be hooking away from our target. Okay? Now that path was in to out, so that was severely in to out for me. As someone who hits a draw already, and I'm adjusting my stance, I'm going to have a pretty big in to out path. We have a 4 degrees open face. So again, we don't want that club face close to our target. If that club face was close to our target, that ball would have started left and hooked like ridiculously. So, but we do have this club face close to our path, 10 degrees in to out, but only 4 open. So that was ideal for me. That's a really good shot. Okay, so again, somebody like me who hits a draw, that shot's going to be easy. Now, hitting a fade for me is a little bit harder. So I really have to exaggerate. I really have to open my stance, okay? I really have to get the club face more open or kind of pointing right where we want this ball to end at setup here. I want to feel like my hands go out. We're swinging along my feet line. They're going out to in to hit this big fade that we're trying to hit. Okay, we got the check mark. Let's go for it. Feet are open, hips are open, shoulders are open. Club face is open at the target, and we're going to go for it. Beautiful. Love that. Now, we talked about how we don't want that ball to cross the line, but as someone who doesn't really hit a fade that often, I'd be pretty happy with that shot. We're only a few feet right of our target line. Now, let's take a look at our numbers here. Outside in, 4.7. Okay, that's great for hitting a slice or hitting a fade. A closed club face. Okay, again, we hit this ball too far right, but our club face is closed. Why? Because of our path. Okay, for hitting a fade, we want to close club face to our target, but we want an open club face to our path, which is what we have. So the path is going this way, but our face is open to that path, slightly close to the target. That ball is going to be a little bit of a pull that cuts back towards the flag. So if you're someone who's trying to work the ball, especially the opposite way than you typically work it, make sure that you are exaggerating your setup, okay? Now, another point is, so many times I see people trying to hit straight balls. Every golf ball should have some sort of curve on it. You should never be trying to hit an exactly straight golf ball. Why is that? If I try to hit a perfectly straight ball, if I slice it or hook it, this ball is going to be moving away from my target at all times, okay? It's going to be moving. It's only going to get worse and worse. And, the straight ball is one of the hardest shots to hit in golf. Now, if I am trying to hit a draw and I don't draw it as much as I want, that's okay because the ball is still trying to move towards our target. It's so much easier to try to work the ball one way or the other. So I really try to help you guys and all of my students to understand and develop one shot, whether it's a small fade or a small draw, that you can go to over and over and over again. And again, when you're trying to work it, just exaggerate your setup. If I'm trying to hit a big draw, I'm setting more closed with my feet, my hips, and my shoulders, and my club path or my club face is going to be pointing where I want the ball to end. So our body is facing where we want the ball to start. Club path is facing where I want the ball to end. We want to really feel like we're swinging along our feet line. So, with a closed stance here, it still can be done where you go this way and go out. So I really want you to feel like we're swinging along our feet line here, okay, and out towards the target for a hook. Same thing with a slice, open club, or open stance. That club face is pointing at the target. We're swinging along our feet line, okay, and we're hitting some good shots. So let's go over what we talked about here tonight, and that's ball position, pitching wedge, middle of the stance, 6-iron, left ear, 3-iron in between the left ear and the shoulder blade. We want to make sure we're controlling our low point, getting it in front. How are we doing that? By making sure we're rotating, we're not flipping our wrist early, and we're not falling back on our lead foot. Make sure we're working on drills when we're hitting off the mat, like the towel, so we can get some feedback of where our low point is. Make sure we're looking at our numbers. We know if we're working on fixing a slice, we're getting our hands more on the inside out. If we're working on fixing a draw, we're getting our hands more from outside in. And we're making sure our wrist angles are okay to control the club face. This is a great drill to take away from tonight. This is making sure we're hitting down on it, hands ahead, and we're looking at the club face to control it. And I also want to make sure that you guys are developing one shot. You're not out there on the course trying to be the best golfer in the world and work it both ways, which, by the way, the best golfers in the world, they don't really do that. DJ hits a cut most of the time. Colin Morikawa hits a cut most of the time. Some guys will hit a draw. But it really just depends. So I really want you to one, make sure that you're putting in as much time as you can working on things. We all can't really get out to the range every day, but drills like this we can work on in our house. We're making sure that we're progressing. We're making sure our grip is correct, our wrist angles. Okay, so I really appreciate you guys spending some time with me tonight. These SwingU Lives are really just a hangout, a place where we can kind of talk about things for an extended period of time and really dive deep into every different subject. So, I know we kind of breezed through a couple things here tonight. And like I said, like I promised you guys, we're going to dive deep into certain things. So if you are someone who slices the ball and you said, hey, you didn't spend enough time on that, stay tuned to that. And like I said, we're going to spend a good section on posture, grip, and we're not just going to blow through them. But this was a great iron overview. If you guys have any questions, drop them in the comment section below. We'll look at them, and I'll answer as many as I possibly can personally. And like I said, I love to see you guys' questions because it brings up more and more topics for future dates. We're doing these every week, guys. All right, so there's so much to talk about in golf. And we talked about this last week. One of the things that makes golf really hard is there a different way of getting it done. If there was only one way to swing a golf club, we wouldn't need golf instructors. It'd be so easy. Everyone would know what to do. But the problem is there's so many different postures. There's so many different setups. There's so many ways of getting it done. Ricky Fowler's really flat. Justin Thomas is really high at the top with his hands. So, there's so many different ways of swinging the club. So this is a great way to kind of learn more about the game, grow our knowledge, and get to the area that we need to be. So again, I thank you guys for joining us. Try to join us every week if you can so you're not missing out on things. I know a lot of times tonight I said, we talked about this last week, and if you're someone who's new, you're like, dude, I wasn't here. But, go back and watch that show as well. And again, we're going to talk about more detailed things in the future. But make sure you're dropping those questions below. I'll get to as many as I possibly can. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Appreciate it, and we'll see you next week.